Welcome to Minority Focus. I'm your host, Jimmie Moore. The show tries to bring people of interest who do things that are of interest or may be of interest to the people who view the show. And there are so many in Paducah that never get an occasion to tell you about what they do or expose you to what they do. And we're fortunate today to have Mr. Charles Bradford, who is a Paducah Lifeline Ministries worker?
Facilitator.
Facilitator, okay. I thought about that word earlier when I was on the way out here.
Okay.
You know, but when I thought about it, I said, what does that mean?
That's interesting.
Welcome, good to have you.
It's good to be here. It's
Good to have you. Met Brother Bradford a matter of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had no idea about his involvement in things in Paducah that are a benefit to other people, and I'm glad I found that out, and very glad that you're here to talk about some of those things. I'm going to try to be quiet and let you do that. Something about what you do.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to explain what a facilitator is. I thank God for the opportunity to be here and to share some of those thoughts. Lifeline Ministry is a residential drug treatment program, drug and alcohol treatment program. And what I do is I do a class, a substance abuse treatment class at the McCracken County Jail. And in the jail, I am a facilitator. And a facilitator, I'm just sitting there trying to keep the flow of the conversation, discussions, and lessons going on an even keel. I'm not there because I know it all, because most of the stuff I'm sharing with people, I'm learning myself as I'm going along. And we get into some very serious issues with drug and alcohol treatment. Most of the time, I found out that in conversating and talking with the people that drug and alcohol is really not their most serious problem. Drugs and alcohol are a symptom of some other deep-seated problems that we try to mask, we try to hide. We don't want people to know that we are like that, you know. Some of it comes out of abusive relationships. Sometimes it's in growing up, they've been in an abusive household, an abusive father, and different things like that. A lot of times, the physical abuse is really not as difficult to deal with as the emotional abuse.
Right. Quick question. Just thought about this. I understand all the underlying things that bring about addictions and all of that. Is there such a thing as an addiction in a pure form? You experienced it, you liked it, and you do it. And there's absolutely nothing else going on to make you or influence you to do it.
Oh yeah, there is, yeah. A lot of times there are times when you've got everything you need. You've got what you would call a dream lifestyle. You know, you've got more than you can handle, and it's just sometimes it's a part of our personality.
I see a lot of those kind of shows on TV, where sooner or later they're gonna get back to something somewhere in somebody's past that makes them or led them to do this, but that's not always true. That's not always true. But in those shows, it's like they're determined that there's got to be something to inspire a person to do that. And I can't think anything other than you decided to try it and you liked it.
Well, that sometimes is the case, that some people just are experimenting. They get to that age where they're experimenting and they like it and they really enjoy it and indulge in it. And so we're not trying to look for the boogeyman. And sometimes is the problem. You know, we always think there's a boogeyman, you know. It's really just our fallen nature. And because of that, and the thing about it, Paducah Lifeline Ministries is a Christian-based treatment program. It's based on scriptural references. In fact, the last class I did, and it was my first one that I actually did a 12-step program, and I worked out of what they call the Life Recovery Bible, and it has the 12 steps as well as the 12 principles for recovery. And part of it is dealing with personalities, dealing with the things, because when we look at it, many of our biblical characters have some of the same issues that we have.
Right.
And they're no different. And so when we find scriptural references and we can reference these things and find in them ways to identify those issues or lack of issues, you know, like some people, like you said, some people, they try something and they find that they like it, and so it begins to change their personality so that they will find opportunities to use what they have.
In a lot of cases, when you're trying to help somebody, inspire them to get rid of an addiction or whatever, in the treatment, however you treat them, you throw God in there, you lose them. They're not going to accept that. They don't know anything about that, about God and what have you, and they reject it. And that a program is based on the principles of the scriptures and of God. I know there's that thing in the recovery process where you say God as you understand Him. I heard a guy say one day, my God is a doorknob. You know, and I said, you know, but some people are not going to deal with that. How do you round them or bring them around to a point where you can, sometimes without them even knowing it, open them up to spirituality or any Christian principles?
Well, what happens, what has happened in many cases that they come in, like you say, and some of them have no idea of spiritual truths and different things, biblical truths, and we don't start off, we use the Bible as the reference, but we also use the principles, the steps themselves. And as you're using the steps lead them to realize that they are a spiritual being. You know, most people don't even think about the fact that they have a spirit, so they're not even aware of the spiritual process. But even if you're using straight AA or NA with where they say that the God of my understanding, it brings them around to a spiritual concept because the steps are spiritual. First of all, you come to realize that you are powerless. Your life is unmanageable and out of control. And then you said that there's a power higher than myself that can bring me around to sanity. You start off with that. And then once you find out that there is a process that you can go through, we're presenting them with the process. And in Lifeline, the process is bringing them around in the process to realizing that their real hope is in a relationship with God. And so it's a gradual, you know, we come in, sometimes they come in and they're raw, you know. Right. They've been in it for years, they really don't want, and they're coming in just so they can get out of their cell, just so they can have a few minutes of not having to be cooped up, locked up by themselves. And
Judge said so.
Yeah, right. And well, it's a volunteer program there. They have to, they have
sometimes it's mandated. I mean, the courts mandate you will attend, but this is voluntary.
In certain cases, but most of the people that come into my group come in voluntarily. They have to sign up. Chaplain Stan Dorette down at the McCracken County Jail, he asks them whenever I get ready to start a class who wants to be in the class. And I usually I start off with 12 people. And there have been times that I started off with 12 and ended up with 2. But this last class was pretty good, and I had 12 people and wound up with 8. But the 4 that left the class left because they were transferred. They either got out of jail or were transferred.
And I've said often over the years, I wonder if a lot of people are aware how closely the book of Alcoholics Anonymous coincides with the Bible, or how leading it is to, and I've mentioned before, I think my very favorite thing in the book was off page 86. On awakening, reach and get him.
Yes.
Take him all day, coach all day, or else you're gonna mess it up. Is that scripture? That's what he says.
That's what we do. We meditate. You know, one of my favorite verse in the Bible is Psalm 1. It says, "He that blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night." So, if the basic principle, the premise is the same, you know. The terminology that we use is different, but the principle is the same. And the principles work in, if you work it, it'll work for you. And that is the thing. And so a lot of times, you know, when people come in, one of the first things that you have to deal with anybody on drugs and alcohol is that you have to make them realize that they got a problem. Because you're not going to get help if you don't think you have a problem.
Exactly.
And a lot of times they say, well, I can handle it, you know. But most of the time, people don't really seek for help until they're hurting.
So you can't say you can do something if you haven't done it.
Right.
You can't say that. I can quit anytime I want to.
Yeah,
So why haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, or show me, or prove it, and that's probably not going to happen. I want to move to the fact that Paducah Lifeline Ministries involves any number of areas. It's not necessarily just, you do a jail ministry, I understand, a jail prayer meeting.
Yes.
Give me a little.
Well, in my group, you know, because I tell them, I say, well, you know, we're not just dealing with drugs and alcohol, we're dealing with lifestyle. Because there's going to be a lifestyle change, because if you continue to act the same way, making bad decisions and different things like that, you're going to wind up going back to the same place you were. So we're trying to change people's mentality and to change their view and their lifestyle.
How did you get to that, the jail ministry thing? Did you just like walk into it, or
well, no, I moved down here from Chicago in 2001, and I was attending Oasis Christian Center on Buckner Lane.
All right.
And my pastor mentioned, because I like outreach, and so I was talking to him about outreach, and so he introduced me to Jim Trimble, who was the founder of Lifeline Ministries, and so. In talking with him, he persuaded me. Well, he didn't have to persuade very much, but he offered me an opportunity to be a facilitator there at the jail.
You have a place set for the inmates to come.
Right. We use one of the areas that they use for visits from family during the day. It's not used on. My classes, I have 2 classes a week. That's on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
I would think, just from my own perspective, that there would be some frustration in knowing that some of those guys who come to the prayer, the gathering or whatever, they working on things and look good on their record. So when the time comes off the road, they can get out. You know.
Yeah.
That would be a frustration for me, knowing that, and maybe even seeing that in some people. You hear the.
Yeah. Well, what I do is I will write letters. I write letters to the parole board or to judges for them, and so I give what I think is a fair assessment of their process, of their progress. Not trying to flatter them. I don't want to flatter them. I do want to encourage them and strengthen them, but I don't want to flatter them to make them think that they're it, But I do like to encourage them to get stronger. And usually, I'll tell you, there is a process between the 4th and the 6th week. You can see the light go on. You can see a light bulb over their heads. You can see that, hey, they're finally starting to get it, And that's when the group begins to gel, because one of the things that makes our group work is confidentiality and anonymity. We don't discuss anybody. That's one of the things that we talk about. We set that as a principle, that what is said in the group remains in the group, and that includes everything. And there was an incident that happened years ago, where there was a conflict between the people in the laundry and the people in general population, because they felt that they were giving out the best things to their friends and stuff like that. But what it was that the supplies were not being issued out like they should, and they said some things that were very derogatory to but it was not talked about. I've never have mentioned anything about it, what was said, because there was some pretty.
It's got to be pretty scary.
Yeah.
From time to time, I run into somebody out there in society, and they scare me. They don't do anything to me or say anything to me, but I feel an evil. Or maybe I listen to them and I hear them say something or that says, wow, what an evil, that's evil, But to be in an environment where there's a whole bunch of those people, all together, all around you, you know what I'm saying? You be praying before you go in there, don't you?
And while I'm there, and while I'm there, yes, I tell you, it's and one of the things that I try to do in the classes is in the group is that I try to make them aware, because they're always, railing against the guards. I say, well, you know what? Some of those guards have the same problems that you have. They have some of the same issues that you're dealing with. So the best way to do it is, instead of you developing an animosity toward them, you need to pray for them. And so we do. We pray for them. And you'd be surprised. I mean, just that little simple gesture of praying for somebody and realizing that that person, he may have had an argument with his wife, his children, there may be financial problems, and he's bringing all of that to work with him. Then he's got to deal with a bunch of grown-up people. Having to guard grown-ups is not the easiest thing in the world to do either.
At the same time that they're in an organization where people are supposed to be all about doing good, there's always going to be that element that's totally different from that. Like, police are supposed to serve and protect, but then there are police who beat the fire out of you for no reason. Well, I saw a program last night about that, where they suspected that the guards would take people off camera and beat them up or take them down here or whatever. There's always that element, in the holiest of churches. Wherever you go, there's going to be that element that is not what it claims to be. And everything that glitters ain't gold, and and whatever, and that's something that needs to be looked at. The guy who beat up this lady on the street on television the other day, and then there's a question about whether he was just doing his job or not. It goes both ways. There's going to be inmates who are about antagonizing these guys.
Oh yes.
Hurting them if they get a chance.
If they get the chance,
and things like that. But the truth of the matter needs to be better observed. And known. I wonder why they don't give people, when they go on a job like that as a policeman or whatever, guard in a prison, why don't they give them some kind of test to find out if you're racist, or check you out to see if you've been involved with this? Do you beat up people for fun of it? I know it can't be done, but
well, I think they are, starting to deal with those issues, because they're seeing them becoming more apparent in our society. So that I think the workforce at the jails are becoming the leaders, the jailers and the sheriffs are becoming more aware of that element, even with the people that are there to guard the prisoners, and so I think it's being addressed, probably not as much as is necessary, but I see them, making some progress. I talked with Chaplain Stan down at the jail, and Bill Adams, who is the jailer, and those are issues that they're always, talking about and becoming aware of.
You mentioned bullying. And I hear it mentioned often. big thing about bullying. There was one program once where, a true story, where a big kid, mild-mannered, was getting bullied by this little kid. And it went on for so long, and then they caught this on film. One day, the big kid got tired, and he picked the little kid up and body slammed him. And then, of course, he was in big trouble. I had a conflict with that. My mind went, I was happy he did it, on the one side. But on the other side, I was sorry the pain that this other kid, and I was sorry for the kid getting bullied, and I had to work with this because I was happy that that's what you get. You need to be careful about who you bully.
Right.
But how do you separate? And I know it happens in places of incarceration. Do they look out for that? Can you see that with the people that you meet with?
Yes, I do. You know, I think one of the things is that you have to realize that it's not who is right, it's what is right. It's the principle that needs to be examined. And a lot of times that's not experienced because we go in with the preconceived notion that that's the prisoner, he's the jailer's right, the prisoner's wrong. So you already go in with preconceived prejudice in some ways, you know. And like I said, though, I believe that many of those issues are beginning to be dealt with. They're beginning to, you know, I think they are making some strides in how they, as they hire people into those positions, that they're scrutinizing them more because of the fact of just on the fact of potential lawsuits and different things like that. It becomes an economic thing because, you know, a jail that's already operating on a shoestring can't afford to have any problems where they're being sued because there was abuse that was taking place.
I've often heard it said himself that everybody with power don't need to have it. Everybody's got power. You know, some people don't need to have no power because something in their mind has gone on. Well, once they come into this powerful position, then now daddy beat me, school teachers whooped me, this guy beat me up in school. Well, okay, I got you now. I got a gun.
Yeah.
You know, that happens to people. And it was the thing we were talking about earlier about ego.
Yeah.
You know, that they have to be careful about when putting people in certain positions.
Yeah. Well, we always, that is, you're going to have that problem in anything you do. A quote from Lord Aston, he says that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so that is something that's why, you know, there has to be checks and balances. Sure. In everything we do, because to give someone absolute authority and that person doesn't have the capacity to work under that pressure, you know, it will go to their head.
Sure.
And
well,
so
I had a supervisor once at a job I worked at that gave me the blues, big time.
Yeah. And
I couldn't handle him. Until one day it dawned on me, somebody must have done something to him when he was a child. I couldn't figure out any other reason for this man to be this way, this mean, you know, this evil. But there's not always a time where you can do that kind of thinking about why somebody is, especially once they're already in. I mean, judges, you know, they're egotistical judges, obnoxiously egotistical on the bench, you know, and in any number of positions in society. I want to move for just a minute. You mentioned that Paducah Lifeline Ministries is also part of Women Living Free?
Women Living Free is a part of Paducah Lifeline Ministry, and it is a 6-month program as well. And they have 2 phases in the program, and just like with the men, they're the first phase, you're there, you know, trying to stabilize themselves and change their way of thinking, doing reflection on themselves, doing inventory. You know, a lot of times we don't inventory ourselves. Our actions, you know, they become so commonplace that we don't take the time to wonder why did I do that the way I did it. And so as a result of that, you know, we're not seeing some of the conditions or situations that we're in. We are not really aware of it. So part of the program is to reflect and look back at our lives and to do an inventory. And that is the fourth step,
Yep.
you know, doing a fearless and moral inventory, and that can be difficult. And I found out that when I did my step study, you know, that was the most daunting part, is looking back over your life and looking at some of the things you've done, you know, and it's embarrassing. And you know, and then you have to, and then number 5 is that you have to tell somebody else about it. And you just can't tell anybody. You need to have somebody, tell somebody that you have confidence in, that is going to maintain your confidentiality and hold you accountable. And I think that's one of the things that comes out of the program.
Brother Bradford, got a dash.
It's all over already.
Maybe we'll have to work an hour one day, because we talked about a lot of things before the show.
Yeah.
And since we've been doing this show, that tremendous interest. I mean, this is good. You're a pretty smart dude, ain't you?
No, I wouldn't say that. I am
Hope you're going to come back. You're going to come back and do another show sometimes. Thank
Okay,
you so
will
much
do.
for coming.
It's been my pleasure.
Make me too brave to lie, be unkind. Make me too understanding, too, to mind. The little that hurts companions, given friends. The careless hurts that no one quite intends. Make me too thoughtful to hurt others so. Help me to know the inmost hearts of those for whom I care, their secret wishes and all the loads they bear, that I may add my courage to their own. May I make lonely folk feel less alone, and happy ones a little happier yet. May I forget what ought to be forgotten, and recall, unfailing, all that ought to be recalled. Each kindly thing, forgetting what might sting, to all upon my way day after day, let me be joy, be hope, let my life sing. For Paducah 2, Minority Focus, I'm Jimmie Moore.